What's going on, family? Happy Monday, happy Monday. Some technical difficulties, but it's nothing that we can't handle. Happy Monday, happy Monday. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but this should be the last time. This should be the last time. My apologies for the technical difficulties, but this should be the last time. Family, if you can hear me, drop a book emoji. If you can hear me, drop a book emoji. Family, if you can hear me, drop a book emoji, family. I'm checking my audio. If you can hear me, drop a book emoji, family. I'm just checking my audio real quick. Family, if you can hear me, drop a book emoji. Checking my audio. Alright, family, if you can hear me, drop a book emoji. Drop a book emoji and drop them. I'm checking my audio. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Alright, alright. Here we go, here we go. That's peace. Here we go. Alright, I thought I accepted it. Oh, here we go. Peace, beloved. Alright.
Peace, my brother.
Peace.
A little bit of technical difficulties, but we on.
Indeed, indeed. We got it, we got it. We live, we live.
Yes, sir.
We live. All praise to due to Allah. How you been, beloved? How you been?
Yo, I've been magnificent, my brother. No complaints.
Indeed, that's peace. That's peace.
Yeah.
How's LA?
Pardon, so?
How's LA?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said, brother.
Oh, how's Cali? How's LA?
Oh, LA.
Yeah.
Nah, LA is great, man. Cali is great. You know, this is the land of the indigenous, man.
Right.
The aboriginals, man. We have a lot of history out here as a people, man.
Okay. Yeah, facts. So we're gonna go all into that. Real quick. So I'm gonna do the intro and then we're gonna get started.
For sure, man.
All right, that's peace. All right, family. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Hotep Islam. Alafia. Again, our apologies for the technical difficulties, but we are back. All right. Before we get started, family, make sure you click the link in the bio and you subscribe to the YouTube page. Make sure you click the link in the bio and you subscribe to the YouTube page. All right. Also, we are also, if you want, you could buy a badge as well. Support and buy a badge. If you have learned anything from us posting, or if you bought a book from us in the past and you learned something from reading, definitely support by buying a badge. You can also support by giving us a testimony as well. Man, we have this great brother. I am personally honored and delighted to have this brother speak on the knowledge and wisdom that he gained over the past. I don't know if you know, brother, but I've been trying to get in contact with you, and I've been trying to get an interview with you for quite some time. So definitely this has been in divine order. All praises due to Allah. Again, I'm just appreciative and I'm honored, especially learning the knowledge that I've learned in the Black biology class at Medgar College in Brooklyn, New York. I still, learned, I still have and have practiced some of the knowledge that you have taught us. So appreciate that, man. So without further ado, family, please welcome me, Born MasterMind Allah. Welcome, beloved.
Peace, family.
Welcome.
Thank you for sharing your platform with me, beloved.
Yes, sir. Of course, man. More people need to know about, nationality. We need to know about international law and all of the other subjects that we're about to get into and we're about to build on. All right. So let's get started, man. So tell us about your upbringing. What was that like?
Right. My upbringing was all good, man. I grew up in Irvington, New Jersey. I grew up in the hood, which is, right there by, Newark, New Jersey. It's between
Right.
Newark and Maplewood. So you have, different neighboring towns. I grew up with a good family. I had both my father and my mother present, you know, still being in the community, grew up around a lot of crime. I had, you know, older brothers and a sister. So my upbringing was good. In fact, I was raised in the church. My father's a minister.
Okay.
So, you know what they say about the minister's kids. I was always in trouble,
Right.
you know. But one thing I must say is, you know, I grew up around the word. So while most people may see it as a certain brainwashing or a certain conditioning, because oftentimes they take our ancient texts, our ancient scripts, and that's what they do. They water it down, and, you know, they take stuff out, they put stuff in so they can keep us entrapped, keep us enslaved. But the one thing I must say is the word got to me, and I was able to find the truth in it and connect to the truth. So as I began to get knowledge of self, especially at the time I was growing up, hip hop had knowledge of self in it.
Facts.
You know, you had your Rakim, who was a 5%er. You had Big Daddy K. So I grew up around 5%ers, not only in the neighborhood, but through the music. And they would spark the brains, and conscious hip hop allowed me to connect the information I was actually getting in church to knowledge of self. And I was able to make that connection where a lot of people, you know, weren't. I was able to. So I was appreciative for that.
Right. That's peace. So, if you could add on, how you was able to make that connection from listening to hip hop and receiving knowledge of self, and then also like going to church and receiving the knowledge in church? How was you able to make that connection?
Right. One thing about the church is, and this is going to be with most religions, particularly most Abrahamic religions, the truth is going to be in there. If you understand, the Bible was composed of ancient texts and scripts that came from, you know, the pyramid texts and the temples of Luxor and the temples of Dendera. So these are our ancient scripts that the original people wrote. Now, of course, there was falsehoods and snares that had been added to the book. There was things taken out. And of course, they tried to change our perspective so it could be a tool of enslavement. But when the truth is there, and the truth is always in you, and that connection happens, that spark happens, nobody can stop you from having the truth. So that's one thing about, you know, through the music, through hip hop, you know, where you had the gods in hip hop and just all around conscious people with knowledge. You take that information, man, and we're hearing it, and it start to spark your brains up, and you start to begin to study. You listen to KRS-One, and he was doing songs, you know, that was actually teaching you about, you know, not only the origin of the Bible, but some of the origin of the people in the Bible genetically. And you're able to start making that connection. And you're like, wait a minute, these are our people, at least these stories and these regions that they were telling these stories from. And then you start to realize that, wow, man, you know, even in the Bible itself, as well as the Quran, and again, all other religious books, if you really study, they're talking about you. You know, the God that they're talking about is something that's within you, that is you. So when you tap in, you start, you stop placing other people in those positions. You stop placing that deity outside of self, and you start putting yourself in that position, realizing that it's been you with the power the entire time.
Indeed, indeed. So tell us, beloved, was there any time in place, because you grew up in Irvington, and you know that's the hood and everything like that. Was there a place in time where you experienced racism, where you experienced police brutality, or just even like discrimination from these white supremacist groups and organizations?
Right. Well, I'm gonna say this: the time I came up in, and the place I came up in, the racism that you experience, it's covert. It's not so overt because you grew up around liberals, and liberal racism is covert. It's not so overt. So a lot of it's systematic. It's things that's going over our heads and we don't even realize. You know, when you talk about people trying to get certain loans, whether it's business loans or loans to purchase property, you know, and it's mainly the things that we are not taught within our school system, or the types of businesses that, you know, usurp from our community and our neighborhood, or the type of foods that are put into the schools that we occupy. So this is where the systematic racism is happening, and it's not, again, so overt. So we didn't see Klan in our neighborhood. I grew up in a black neighborhood, so we didn't see, KKK or rednecks or skinheads. And most of the time, even that is really just a smokescreen to the true, like I said, systematic racism that's preventing true, that's placing true hurdles and obstacles in the way of our rise.
Indeed. Just to add on, as you said, through systematic racism, we're experiencing it every day, and so much so that we may not even realize that we're experiencing discrimination and racism, because racism is a system. And shout out to Dr. Francis Cross Welsing, who emphasized on that racism being a system. And through our everyday activity, through schools, through colleges, through church, even through hospitals, and so much more, through law, right? Corporate America and so forth. We are experiencing racism and discrimination every day of our lives.
That's right.
That's peace. So speaking of colleges and schools, so as I said, man, again, I was honored, and I had the pleasure of sitting in one of your classes, Black Biology at Medgar Evers College. Shout out to Medgar Evers, who again was just a brilliant man, and who worked for the NAACP down in Mississippi, right? And so we have the majority of the students who attend Medgar Evers don't even know who Medgar Evers was. So that's a problem within itself, right? But so you taught the class Black Biology. So can you give us a synopsis of what that class was about, one, and how did that class came about in the first place?
Absolutely. Overall, what the class is about, it's about the genetics of melanated people. And we have a different genetic type than anybody else on the planet. Being the Aboriginal people of the planet, being the original people of the planet, we have the original genetics, the original gene type. So that class came about to give our overall community an understanding of the differences when it comes down to diet, when it comes down to the medical services that are required, and what we must do that's specific and unique to us as a people. Often we're given a one-size-fits-all approach to not only diet and nutrition, but a one-size-fits-all approach to medical practices, which is not the truth, because something that may be good for someone else, another race or another genotype, may not be the best for us. So often we were being taught, like, for instance, we're being taught that, milk does a body good. And we know the history of where that comes from. Even the food pyramid itself, the history comes from the dairy farmers themselves. They finance the food pyramid itself so they can sell more dairy, sell more milk. But we, as original people or melanated people, we experience dairy worse than other groups. It harms us more than it harms other people. So are the foods that we are consuming, the meat, the nitrogen-based foods, the nitrogen-based agriculture. So once you learn what melanin is, first and foremost, which is really, it's a carbon compound, it's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And when you understand that, then you understand what we should be consuming, and the medical practices that we should be applying should cater to that carbon compound. While others may have other, mutations and other, parts that are more compatible to their genotype that may work for them don't necessarily work for us. So that's how that class came about.
Okay. So can you give us a short list of foods that we should be eating in accordance to our biological makeup?
Absolutely. And I can really, try to simplify it to a degree. What we should be consuming is carbohydrates, or what's sometimes referred to as the CHO chain, because that is what, melanin is: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now, don't be confused when I say carbohydrates. A lot of times, some people go straight to starch. So these are not your starches. You don't want to consume your starches. Definitely don't want to over consume them if you consume them at all. So, that would be your rices and your breads and your potatoes and things like that. You want to stay away from that for the most part. You want to
Because it's not
stay.
natural.
Absolutely. You want to stay with your fruit and your vegetables. Your fruit and your vegetables, these are carbohydrates, and you want them to be seeded. So if you have a watermelon, right, you want your watermelon to have the black seeds. Within that seed is the carbon, right? And it contains hydrogen and the oxygen. So everything you consume, you want it to contain that carbon, that hydrogen, and that oxygen. That carbon, which is obviously going to be throughout the entire food, but it's definitely going to be in the seed. So, you want your fruit with the seed. You definitely want your fruit. You want your hydrogen. You want to stay hydrated. So you want to make sure it has a water base. So you don't want to eat foods that are void of the water, even your processed foods, thing that is stripped of not only its water, but its nutrients all around the board. And then of course the oxygen. So you want your food to be, to have life, to have breath. You understand what I'm saying? And we are people that are solar symbiotic. So we consume sun and we convert that into electricity, into energy. So we are solar symbiotic people. So we want to consume foods that are of the sun. So definitely beware of, too many starches. If you eat them at all, definitely be aware of your processed foods. You want them whole. You want your fruits and your vegetables. Stay away from the meats. Most of the meat that you are going to consume, first of all, most of them are hybrid to the point of it no longer containing any of the original nutrition that it may have once had, even as an animal. And then they're pumped with all types of chemicals and hormones, which are not going to be compatible to our biological makeup. So you want to stick to your fruits and vegetables. I tend to stay away from the term vegan. You can use that term when you're in certain places and you just want to simply understand whether or not the food you're consuming or the food that's being served contains any animal products, but it's not going to let you know whether or not that food is healthy or not, because there's still a lot of garbage food that are being consumed in the name of vegan. So I like to consider what I do a melanin-based diet. And again, that's simply the CHO chain, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. If you stick to that, you'll be heading in the right direction.
Melanin-based diet, man. That's deep. That's deep.
And you asked, so let me just throw some out there because you did ask for food specifically.
Indeed.
So yeah, so as far as grains or seed-like grains like quinoa, you want to stick to your black quinoa. You can do your red quinoa. White quinoa is obviously better than rice, but stick to your black quinoa if you could find it. You want your black-seeded watermelon for sure. You want your hemp seeds, which is great. You want your avocados, which is good fat for the brains. You want your olive oil, but you don't want to cook it. You want to eat the olive oil as raw as possible. If you have to cook anything with oil, which I don't suggest at all, you can use avocado oil. Your coconut
oil is good too.
Absolutely. Your coconut oils are good. Your coconut water is good. So when you deal with your greens, you want to stay away from greens like kale, because they can actually strip you of minerals, because they're what you call pardon me for the term, losing the term at the moment, oxalic acid. They contain oxalate, so they will actually strip you of nutrients. So be aware of your collard greens and your kales and things like that. The leafy greens you want to stick to is your dandelion greens, your watercress. You can do a little bit of chard. So, the list goes on and on. A lot of people think that when you switch to a plant-based diet that your options are limited, but there are tons of options. Fonio, another good, for grain. On and on. The list goes on and on.
Right. So I know, right? I know that you're currently doing a raw vegan diet right now. Like you're eating raw foods, correct?
Yeah, for the most part, the majority of what I consume is raw and plant-based. There's some foods that you do not want to consume raw, so you want to add some heat to it. Like, for instance, like black quinoa, or quinoa in general. You don't want to eat that raw. You want to crack the membrane so you can get to the nutrition. Now, what I do personally, which works for me very well, is I soak and sprout the quinoa, and then I'll steam it long enough so it can break down to the point that I can consume it, consume the nutrients within it. but that's not something you want to just consume raw. So
Right.
some things you add a little heat to. You don't necessarily have to, boil it or cook it for long periods of time, but you do want to add a little bit of heat to it. But for the
Okay.
most part, I do consume a raw plant-based diet.
Right, right. Okay. For the most part. So, real quick, so how has that developed you health wise? I mean, obviously you've seen a difference because you're eating, raw food, raw vegan foods. And if you can tell us, you personally, what benefit has that brought to your well-being and physical makeup?
Right. Well, I can tell you, man, just, being on both sides, just overall fitness. I'm a very active person. So I know what it's like when I've consumed heavier foods or on a majority cooked diet, or even when I was consuming, meats long time ago. I know the heaviness of what I'm dragging around. You can feel certain body parts not only be as light, but certain pains. One thing I can say is I'm very light. I'm very athletic because I'm constantly, like I said, I'm on the move. I bike, I play ball regularly, I
Okay.
run, I do all of these things, and
Okay.
I'm doing them with teenagers and 20-something-year-olds. I'll be twice these people's age, man. And listen, while they on the sidelines tired, I'm like, let's go for another game.
Right.
So definitely the overall fitness and durability of the body. I can climb anything with anybody. I can jump with anybody, and the durability factor is really key. So if you want to live a long and strong quality of life, you definitely want to consume the high levels of nutrition and remove the blockages, because that's another great benefit. Is once I removed a lot of the blockages, the starches, the processed foods, your mind becomes clear, your brain becomes clear. You're able to
Okay.
pick up greater signal, greater revelation, receive and transmit signal.
Mm.
It's just like a cell phone. You take a cell phone and everything. We all operate off of electromagnetism. We're all electromagnetic beings, right? So you take a cell phone, which is a low grade of electromagnetism, and you put it, in a basement, or you put it somewhere where the signal is not great. Then you'll see it gets kind of foggy. Things will break up. You'll even lose the call. Well, you work the same way. If you fill your body and fill your cells with debris that the cells have to constantly keep getting rid of, and cutting off your ability to receive signals and transmit signals, you'll feel the same fogginess. So
Mm.
you'll have a lack of connection to the overall environment.
Right, right, indeed. So let's switch gears a bit and let's talk about the family unit, right? And
Sure.
man, I mean, I know I can talk for myself when I say that the family unit is not what it once was, right? I mean, even my generation, we don't even want to get married now, right? We want to, a lot of people like these situationships, and they just like to talk phase, and it's just a whole bunch of chaos within the family unit structure. So I know you have a wife, that's Peace, a wife and children. You have six seeds going on seven.
Actual fact, yes, sir.
Right, indeed, indeed. So how important is family to you? And can the Aboriginal family function as a unit as we once did?
Well, your first question is, family is the pinnacle. Before you can have anything, before you can have a strong community, let alone a strong nation, you got to have a strong family. You can't have a community or a nation designed based off of single people. We were designed to come together and procreate and build. So that's nature and that's natural. Even if some people feel like it's not for them individually, that's fine. That's a choice they make. But overall, as a collective, as a whole, that's what we're designed to do. So family is first and foremost. So until you get your family structure together, the community will never be together, because the community is made up of a collection of families. And
Mm,
the nation is made up of a collection of communities. So the family structure is that's the first block.
right, that's the
And
foundation.
Absolutely. And that's how we keep ourselves infinite physically on this planet. That's how we continue to reproduce ourselves, reproduce our gene line, our lineage depends
Right.
on family. So
Yeah.
that's first and foremost. The family is definitely first. As far as us being able to function like we once did, not only can we function like we once did, we can function better than we ever have. You know,
Okay.
this is a
How
great
so?
time. This is a great time for the rise of the original people. You know, nature itself is on our side. You know, information is on our side. Now, you know, you have the pros and the cons of so much information that's out there because you have misinformation, but yet the information is still out there. People are walking around with computers in their pockets. So
Indeed.
the information is vast. So once we start dealing with, you know, our culture, our natural culture, which should be connected to nature itself, and we start studying and getting information that's going to benefit us as a people as a whole, we'll start to we'll you know, cipher through all of the misinformation that's out there. So we're in a good place and a good position if we take advantage of the times that we live in. So certainly there's been an attack on family, you know, particularly a black family, but family in general, you know, for a very long time. And that's part of the last attempt. That's part of the last attempt to prevent the inevitable. And the inevitable is the rise of the original people. Everything is in transition right now. The planet is in transition, nature, and so are we. So we're going to rise back to prominence as we once were. And the family is definitely going to be a cornerstone to that. So, you know, you see a lot of, you know, growing up in the 80s and 90s, you know, and obviously decades before that, it really started in the 60s for the most part, systematically, where the man started being removed from the home.
Mm.
And women started, you know, they started being taught that they can receive assistance from the state, but they must remove the man from the home. So unfortunately, a lot of our sisters, you know, fell victim to it. And we fell victim for allowing that process to happen, where they started choosing the state checks, the welfare, the food stamps over having the black man in the home. So that's a trap that we fell for as a community. But we're starting to recognize that more and more. We're starting to recognize that those were traps and those were tricks. And you see a lot of people coming out, even with the late great brother Kevin Samuels. A lot of people have mixed emotions on this brother's delivery, but one thing you cannot have mixed emotions on is his ability to give facts and statistics that you can calculate and add up, and the data was right and exact. You can fact check it. So you don't have to like his delivery, but you can deal with the facts and the data that he presented to the people.
Yes,
and
sir.
We saw, you know, the assault that was on the black family as a result, and it has not worked. So, but many of us are recognizing that now. Black men are recognizing it. The black women are recognizing it. We're realizing that that was a trap. So many of us are not falling for that anymore. We're coming back together to respect each other at a higher level and not fall for those same traps of depending on the state or even depending on a so-called education, and realizing that there's no greater value than each other.
Right.
So,
Right. Indeed, indeed. And just to add on, I mean, first shout out to Fruits of Life Yoga. Shout out to that sister. We just had an interview. Phenomenal and amazing wisdom and knowledge. She gave the audience last week. So yeah, just to add on, I mean, family to me, like family is key. We can't go as you were saying, we can't go nowhere. Family is the foundation. And if we don't have the family structure as a unit intact, then our freedom is definitely in jeopardy, right? And then also family is the first line of defense as well, right? So when, historically speaking, when the Europeans came into Africa, they didn't come into Africa warring with us. They came into Africa because they knew we had a system in place, right? And so they knew that the family was the first line of defense. So they came in wanting to barter and trade with us, right? And then again, they didn't come in wanting to war with us because they knew that, again, we was in war with ourselves before we could be in war with the Europeans, right? And I'm talking 1492. That was a pivotal, significant year, right? And then prior to that, Europeans was coming in, bartering and trading with us before they decided to come in and divide and conquer, right? So they came in, wanted to gain our trust, wanted to gain our and wanted to gain our friendliness towards them. Okay. And then after that happened, they came in to divide and conquer. And they divided and they conquered the family. Okay. So once they did that, they was able to take over precisely. They was able to take over the land. And as you can see, if your third eye is open, this is what they're currently doing still today in 2022 AD. They're still dividing and conquering the Black family as a whole, still today, with the whole abortion, overturning the abortion Supreme Court ruling, right? Roe v. Wade, with that, with the whole Planned Parenthood, and definitely with education or miseducation of miseducating the mother, because the mother, again, is vital within the family unit. I'm talking about the family unit, man, woman, and child. Okay, so if you miseducate the mother, you miseducate the family, because the mother is the first teacher of that child. That message she gives to the child, that child gives to the world. So they're miseducating her, and in miseducating her, we're miseducating the family as a unit. And so again, we see, statistically speaking, that still we have a single mother household. The majority of Black household is ran by single mothers. That is not by accident. That is not by accident. That is by design. So speak about that, beloved. Why do we still see the majority speaking? I'm not sure the percentage, but it's a high percentage. Black households are still run by single mothers.
Right. Absolutely. Well, like you said, that was by no design. And it goes back, like I said, to the 60s, obviously, much before that, but in this current time period that we're in, they were watching, during the civil rights movement and even the Black nationalists and pro-Black movements, that it was the family that was keeping this together, these movements together. Whether it was through the church, the civil rights movement, or through the community centers, the Black Power movements, it was always the families that were keeping it together. So, it was recognized that if we can break up the family, then we can break up the community. So that's where they come in with the government assistance and so on and so forth to get the man out of the home. And then after that, then they came with, feminism, and drew our women into feminist ideas and feminist thoughts. And then after that, you had the whole, women's empowerment movement, where it became, you don't need a man. Go get a, get a job, get a career, do all these things.
I'm independent. I can do everything by myself.
I can do everything by myself. Anybody that grew up in the 90s, they remember, I could do it by myself, strong Black woman, all of that. Now, obviously, we want our women to be strong and powerful, but we want our women to be strong within their femininity. Being strong don't mean that you have to do it by yourself or take on other characteristics that are not natural to your biology as a woman. But I will say this, again, we are in a good position. And the reason why we're in a good position is because we're recognizing these things now, and women themselves now are realizing, wait a minute, we've been duped. We're in our 40s, we're in our 50s, we're in our 60s. We got these great careers. We have these, these wonderful jobs, these big homes. We don't have anybody to share it with, or we never was able to, reproduce, procreate. So they've recognized that, hold up, there's been a game that's been played on us. And the men, we recognize it as well. So we're in a good position where even if you're still seeing the results of the past, The future is secure because our present, we're recognizing those tricks, those traps, and we're starting to make different decisions. We're starting to make different decisions and different moves so we can come back together and not being trapped by that anymore.
Indeed.
So,
And those who know and those who have a knowledge of self, we are breaking generational curses. We are breaking generational curses by getting married, by leaving a legacy, and by working towards leaving wealth for our offsprings to take over. So I just wanted to fact check myself, right? So 64% of single mothers are African or Black in America. 64% of single mothers are African or Black. Like, so that's a big problem, right? That's a big problem. But I'm optimistic, and as you said, we are in a great place. So thinking positively, we will change that, and we will start to create more meaningful, sustainable families so that we can create sustainable and functional communities, and so that we can create functional and sustainable nationhoods. Okay, because nation building is imperative. We used to talk about nation building in the 60s and 70s. Nobody talk about nation building no more, right? And that's like taboo. I know you still talk about it, beloved, but you know, just a few of us, and we're about to tap in to that subject. But before we get there, still being on the topic of women, right? And peace to the gods and the earths. Explain how is the Aboriginal woman the earth?
absolutely. Growing up with the foundation, or coming up with the foundation of knowledge of self being, you know, of the 5%, you know, the Black woman being the earth. When you understand that the earth is a womb itself. In fact, if we go just a little bit deeper, you know, I've been teaching this for a few years now. I've been teaching this for maybe, you know, definitely since I started the class in 2014, was doing the Black biology classes. But it's been discovered that it was carbon-based meteorites, all carbon-based meteorites that were discovered. Now, these are meteorites that, you know, they're formed in a star and they travel to this plane. Many of them exist prior to this particular solar system, but they're flying through space. Now, when meteorites enter this atmosphere, carbon-based meteorites, they have been found to carry the ingredients to DNA. Now, just recently, studies have shown, and again, we've been studying and teaching this for years, but just recently, a study have shown that all DNA bases have been found in carbon-based meteorites. Therefore, our ingredients in DNA exist prior to this planet and even this particular solar system. Thus, when you understand the concept of panspermia, that the planet was actually inseminated by these carbon-based meteorites that went into the earth as a womb and then begin to grow single cellular and multicellular organisms within the oceans of this earth. So we understand that the earth is a womb itself. Okay. And what you plant inside the earth, life grows out of it. And so is the Black woman. The Black woman is the womb. She's actually the womb of God. She's actually how God, in the physical form, the supreme intelligence, the supreme all intelligence that travels to this plane in the form of carbon-based seeds, goes into not only the womb of the planet Earth, but then we reenact that same process through our seed into the womb of the woman, and then she brings forth life. So the earth and the Black woman is one and the same. They come in different forms, but they are actually one and the same. They are wombs that then grow the material to bring forth God in the physical form.
Wow. I'm gonna just, man, that's deep. Family, make sure you are writing this down. Make sure you are taking notes. All right. And if you learned anything thus far, make sure that you click the link in our bio and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This whole interview will be uploaded on YouTube. Powerful, powerful. Now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he did a lecture on birthing a God, or how to birth a God. Powerful, powerful lecture. All right, you can also look that up on YouTube as well. So in your opinion, how can the womb man, right? Talking about the woman, how can the woman birth a God?
Right. Well, first and foremost is you have to take care of self, right? We have what I call infinite genetics.
Okay.
Our genotype, when you deal with our DNA and the components that make up our DNA, it's from particles and minerals that existed forever. You understand? From our flesh to our cellular life to the atomic life, to the life of particles, back to stars, prior to stars, gas clouds, prior to the infinite blackness of the supreme all that gave birth to all. This is what we are in many of the different forms that we transform in on our way to this particular plane. So when you take the original woman, the aboriginal woman, she has these infinite genes within her. Now, there's a thing called epigenetics. Now, what epigenetics is, you have the ability to turn genes on and turn genes off based on your environment. So based on what you eat, what you drink, what you think, the education that you put into your brain, the people that you're around, your entire and total environment. You have the ability to turn genes on and off. So if you want to tap into those superior genes, then you have to get back in tune with nature and back in tune with your true biology. That's one of the reasons this class, I came forth with this class when I did, was to get people back in tune with their superior genetics, get back in tune with nature and their biology so we can awaken those superior genes that we contain. So this will be through diet. This will be through education. This will be through affirmation, what you speak, you create. This will be your environment, the people that you are around, the air you breathe, the water you drink, a combination of it all. So if you want to give birth to the supreme of beings, then you must place yourself in that particular environment with, being conscious of making sure what you consume physically is biologically compatible to who you are as an original melanated person. You want to make sure that you are around the right people that are speaking the words that you want to impregnate your subconscious first, because what you speak into the subconscious mind, the subconscious mind will give birth. You want to make sure that you're studying our ancestors. We have the genetics of the supreme builders of pyramids and ancient structures that were aligned to the cosmos. We had superior knowledge of the cosmos, superior knowledge of our physiology, of the planet, of the universe. So once we begin studying and continue to study, we will unlock and awaken those genes, because it's been in us the whole time. All of the greatness that we've ever seen on the planet from the original people, it all came down the line of who we are now. A lot of those genes were put to sleep due to miseducation. A lot of those genes were put to sleep due to the foods that we're consuming. A lot of those genes were put to sleep through the manipulation of religion and how the perspective was changed to take God outside of self and believe in something that's outside of self. So once we get back into our natural state, consuming the foods that are compatible to our biology, getting around the right people, receiving the right education, through study, through discipline, receiving knowledge of self and going into those ancient writings and ancient teachings and placing ourselves there and not something that's outside of self, we will begin to awaken those genes. So as we begin to procreate, we will procreate and within that genetic superiority that we have as original people and bring forth the gods that we're supposed to.
Indeed. Actual facts. Actual facts. Man, that's peace. That's peace, beloved. All right, so we can stay on the topic for a little bit. But I want to talk about the nation of the gods and earths, right? So, so what? So who is, or not who? Sorry. So what is the nation of gods and earths, right? And we understand that the nation of the gods and the earths is an offshoot of the nation of Islam, right? The lessons is pretty much similar to that of the nation of Islam, and we know Father Allah, aka Clarence 13X, he basically put his own little spin on it. So talk about the nation of the gods and the earth, and how did they come about?
Okay, so the nation of gods and earths, which again is my, cultural foundation to knowledge of self. You go back to the nation of Islam, you have the brother Master Farad Muhammad, who was the founder of the nation of Islam. And then you have his student, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who would then take over and bring it to its prominence. And of course, from that great man, you've had many great men come from him, like Malcolm X and the Honorable Minister was Farrakhan and Muhammad Ali, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, many great people that taught knowledge of self to awaken people in our community. And among those great men, you had a brother named Clarence 13X Smith, who, when in the mosque within the Nation of Islam studying these lessons, come to realize that he himself is God, that he is Allah. So he recognized that and then made the people call him Allah. Now, he ended up leaving the mosque for many different reasons. People have different reasons why he left the mosque. Some say, because he differed in some of the teachings of teaching that the black man is God, even though the mosque did teach the black man is God, but that he is Allah. So there's many different reasons why people say he left the mosque. I don't know personally, so I won't get into that political debate. But either way, he left the mosque and brought the teachings to the youth in the community of Harlem. He brought it to the young people who were, gang members and, thieves, and they were stealing or knifing people, young criminals. And he brought this knowledge of self to those young people. Now, at a time, the lessons were only reserved within the Nation of Islam for the ministers and those who were members of the Nation of Islam, registered members.
Okay.
Well, he took these lessons and brought them to the streets, and he brought a code of supreme mathematics, which is a number system of how to unlock the codes of the universe. It's a numeric system of order that you use, again, to unlock the codes and so-called secrets of the universe. So he brought the lessons to these young brothers and sisters in the community, along with the supreme mathematics, and begin to civilize them, put them on their square, begin to convince them to go back to school or start a school program within the Allah school, which he erected at that time. He got him out of the streets, took him on trips, and he became known as the father because at the time, many of these people did not have fathers. We talked about how, in the 60s, it began, the fatherless homes. So a lot of these young people did not have fathers, and he acted as a father to these young people by bringing them knowledge of self. And from there, you would see this nation, Allah's 5% nation or nation of God and earth, you would see it grow throughout the years. You would see it even grow within hip hop. Became, very popular amongst hip hop artists, in the early 80s and even in the 90s. So still to this day, you have our brothers and sisters that are out there teaching knowledge of self through Allah's 5% nation or the nation of God and earth.
That's peace. So who was your enlightener? How did you get introduced to the nation of the gods and earths?
Right. Again, when I was growing up, there were a lot of 5%ers in the community. And a lot of them was street cats, to be honest, but they had a type of knowledge that nobody else had. I would ask questions in the church. Church didn't necessarily have the answers. The teachers didn't have the answers, but the 5%ers always seemed to have the answers. They would science it up. And what I respected about them was they didn't take anything on face value. They It's like you got to draw it up to a science. You have to see it for yourself. You have to go through the discipline of figuring it out, not just accepting what somebody gave you, or not just accepting what somebody else told you, but you have to go through it yourself to add it up and draw it up. So I respected them. So between the brothers that was in the community and the music that was out there, it's like, okay, you know, that attracted me again. Even, you know, in hip hop, you know, my favorite MCs back in the day when I was growing up were mostly 5%ers.
Okay.
You know, when you look at Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, these were my favorite MCs. And they're putting knowledge and information in the music, which is something that's very crucial. As an artist myself, it's very crucial that we offer, you know, something within our art that's going to move humanity forward. And that's what they were doing. So that overall sparked me into moving in that direction of wanting to know more and learn more and be counted amongst those who not just accepted what they were given, but really took it through the knowledge to get a true understanding.
Mm. So now, today's mathematics is born. Is born, right?
Is wisdom, God, all being born and born.
Indeed, indeed. So add on to that.
Yeah. Well, to keep it, you know, to keep it simple, because I'm sure you have a lot of listeners who are not familiar with the supreme mathematics, but I'll give you wisdom and I'll give you God. Wisdom is the wise words that are spoken. It's the righteous application of your knowledge. So, you know, once you get information, you now have to apply it. So the wisdom is when you apply that information in the right way, in a righteous manner. So when you apply that information in a righteous manner and you realize that the God is self, that there's nothing outside of self that's going to create your universe for you. You'll have people that add on, you'll have people that assist you, you'll have people that can show you the way, but ultimately it's going to come down to you. You're going to have to create your own universe yourself. So when you apply that knowledge through your wisdom, when you righteously apply that information and you take it upon yourself as God, you now bring things into a completion. So born is completion. It's to bring things into existence what existed in the darkness. Bring things into the light what existed in the darkness. Everything that you see in this physical reality existed in the darkness before you saw it in light. It existed in the blackness of somebody's mind. So before you can see it, whether it's a car, whether it's, you know, an article of clothing, whether it's some type of some type of gadget or piece of technology or invention, before you saw it in the physical realm, it existed within someone, and they applied themselves, the supreme thoughts within themselves, to bring it forth, and that's the state of born.
Indeed, indeed. That's crazy because I mean, I preach that all the time. Like our motto is applied knowledge is true power. A lot of people like to say knowledge is power, but I disagree, because you can have all the knowledge in the world and still not do anything with it, with that knowledge, right? And so it's basically useless, because, you know, you're looking on YouTube and you're researching, you're gaining the knowledge, right? You went to school, you have all this knowledge, but again, you're not applying the knowledge. So is it useful? Because it's just dormant, it's just there. So my thing is, applied knowledge is true power. Right? We need to apply the knowledge so that it can benefit us, so that we can become better individuals. And in becoming better individuals, again, we can help our families to become better people as well. And if we have better families, we have better communities. If we have better communities, we have better nations. So essentially, it all starts with self, and it all starts with applying the knowledge that you receive. Right? So just like you said, let your wisdom be born. All right? So basically, apply the knowledge and let it be born. Let it be in existence, because knowledge, well, first of all, knowledge is the foundation to everything in existence. So you want to have that knowledge first. You want to have that foundation first. But don't get stuck there. That's the thing. Don't get stuck there, right? Use the wisdom and apply it, so that, again, you can learn. And in learning, you have that understanding, overstanding, and understanding of the wisdom and knowledge that you've just obtained. All right, so it gets deep. It gets deep. But my point is just apply the information because we just get stuck with the information. Some of us don't know how to apply it, and some of us don't even care to apply it. But we must apply it in whichever way that you find. Please just apply it because you will find that it will be useful to you in the long run.
Absolutely.
Word. So, all right, so let's switch gears a bit. So you have this business that you've been working on for quite some time, right? And it's Nation Business Builders, correct? I want to make sure I get the name correct. Okay.
Correct.
Nation Business Builders. So what is Nation Business Builders and why have you decided to work in that capacity?
Right. Well, Nation Business Builders, overall, there's several components to it. There is a community-based component where it's simply about educating the community, which again is, comes from our cultural foundation of 5% of being teachers. That's one of the main components is being a teacher. So Nation Business Builders, there's a segment that's simply about offering these services to the community to educate the community, whether it's in health, nutrition, agriculture, and bringing it in various ways, whether it's through community events, whether, that we've held, at the garden, just teaching people the basics of gardening and urban farming, whether it's through movie nights where we're showing certain movies that's going to help educate and stimulate thought, whether it's the sewing classes that my queen headed at a period, where, teaching, the young earths and anybody that really want to learn, how to sew so we can, start the foundation of creating our own clothes. That's one component to it. That's offering those services to the community to just enlighten them and get them back to the basics of being self-sufficient. The other part of Nation Business is then connecting the various nations throughout the planet, the various nations. One thing that we, have to do is we have to network, and this is in life and this is anywhere else, right? We don't live on this planet alone. So what we must do is we must connect with like minds and those around the planet, around the globe that, ultimately want to be stewards of humanity, stewards of this planet, those that want to take care of this planet and exercise certain business practices that are responsible to humanity and this planet. So that's the other segment, is making that connection between nations and thus building together and offering services and receiving services and doing it for one common cause.
Indeed. So I see that you also speak on nationality, right? And sovereignty and nationality is also a component of nation business. Am I right in exact?
Absolutely. That's part of what we teach, and that's also part of how the components in which we're using to nation build. I founded a nation called the Universal Nation of Original People, which is based on, those of the Aboriginal and indigenous genotype of the entire planet, commonly referred to as Black people, in this country called African Americans. Now, when we study history, whether it's through epigraphy, whether it's through paleontology, whether it's through just genetics itself, history, we realize that the so-called Black man and Black woman are the Aboriginal and indigenous people on the entire planet. In this particular part of the world itself, in the Americas, we were the first people here. We had civilizations that were here, and we have evidence of that civilization, of those civilizations, such as the She civilization, right here in this part of the world where I am, particularly, in Mexico. I'm in Los Angeles, but which once was a part of Mexico. But all throughout the United States, you see the evidence of civilizations of Black people. You see pyramids, you see pictures on walls, you see epigraphy, you see the history everywhere. But of course, not just in the United States, but in the entire planet. You go to China and they'll let you know historically that the Aboriginal and indigenous Chinaman was someone of a melanated complexion and pheno and genotype. So with that being the case, we designed a nation state titled, again, the Universal Nation of Original People, where those of the Aboriginal genotype of the planet can be a part of a nation state with their own identity. Again, backed by the history and legacy of the original people of the planet. So with that being said, unfortunately, many of our people, particularly here in the United States, did not know or realize that we are Aboriginal, not only to the entire planet, but even to this part of the world here. You know,
So when you say Aboriginal, what does that mean for the people who don't know?
Okay, Aboriginal simply just means from the beginning. So it means the first people. That term is usually used politically when referring to nations or nation states or groups of people. We know we are the original people, meaning first. When you use the term Aboriginal, it just means from the beginning, which means we were people that were here from the beginning. We use the term original when the name, again, of our nation state is the Universal Nation of Original People, because even before we were in this particular physiology, we existed. Our genetics existed prior to the planet. Our genetics existed prior to this solar system. But when you talk about a people in the form that we are now, that humans are now, we are absolutely, we are the first people on any part of this globe. But because I'm here and the work that I've been doing has been here mainly, you know, it's been my duty to let the people know that no, we are Aboriginal and indigenous to this part of the world as well. Not just Africa. We didn't just come from Africa. We didn't just come from somewhere else, but we were on this part and was always here. So of course, many of our people come from the continent, but we had people that were already here with the same genotypes as those that were on the continent. And that's how we were all over the planet. So once we gain that understanding, then we could begin to form our own identity and not have everybody give us an identity for us. When you see all other nations and people, they have their own identity. They don't wait for someone to come and tell them who they are. Only we, well, I don't want to say only we, but particularly us here in this part of the world, for so long, we've been given an identity. So that was the importance of the Universal Nation of Original People and Nation Business Builders being a component to assisting in building that nation and connecting it with other nations.
So we know that, you know, may Allah be pleased with his ancestor, Noble Drew Ali, right? He came to America, and he was one of the first people to speak and promote Islam to the people here in North America. Not only that, he was, if not the first, one of the first people to speak on nationality and to speak on nationhood and so forth. So we just talked about you having a component of nationality through your business, Nation Business Builders. Have you ever contacted people from, say, Moorish organizations like the Moorish Science Temple to collaborate? Because granted, we are stronger together, right? And, you know, it's powerful if we can even collaborate and show unity on the said subject of nationality. So have you ever contacted in regards to collaborating with any Moorish organizations?
Absolutely. I've definitely been in contact and correspondence, you know, with my brothers and sisters from the Moorish Science Temple of America. Because like you said, you know, together we're stronger. And we all have a piece of the whole. You know, we all have our specialty or something that we may
Right.
do a little bit better than everybody else. And when we come together, we create the whole. So I've certainly been in contact with the brothers and sisters. I've always received, a lot of love anytime I've corresponded with my brothers and sisters from the Moorish Science Temple of America. So most definitely, and willfully, we certainly will be building in the very near future, with all the various groups that come together to, for the betterment of the people as a
Right.
whole.
Indeed, indeed, because that would be better for your development and for what you're doing as well, because they've always talked about nationality and getting, the so-called black people to claim our nationality, to claim our natural birthright, right? So that being said, again, for the people who don't know, what is nationality and why is it important? As the Moors would say, nationality is the order of the day.
There you go. Nationality is basically the nation that you identify with. Now, nation, that term can be used as we've seen it used loosely, which is okay, because a nation could just be one group of people for one common cause. But the place that I saw it necessary for us to move to is not just be a group of people considering ourselves a nation, which that is a nation, but a group of people that can interface with the rest of the world and be recognized as a nation when dealing with international law, so on and so forth. So what makes it very important is not only being to self-identify or having a nation state that you identify with, but being able to have it reflect your way of life. If you live in someone else's nation or under someone else's nation that do not necessarily reflect your way of life, your culture, then you're going to always be on the outskirts. You're going to always be at a loss. So by self-identifying and claiming a nationality and a nation state that reflects the culture and way of life of the original people and their nature, you now can move in sync and in harmony and elevate as a people.
Right, indeed, indeed. So going back to the nation of the gods and earths, right? So I've heard, the gods, they would stand on corners, street corners, and they would bring the youth in and basically enlighten them and give them knowledge of self, so on and so forth. You hardly see that in today's time. So one, why is that you hardly see any, guards standing on the street corner and reciting the lessons and, preaching knowledge of self to the youth? Why you don't see that anymore?
Okay. Well, there's a few reasons why you don't see it. And it doesn't mean that it's not going on, because I'm sure in many cities, there's still, brothers putting in that work on the street corners. One thing is you have technology. You have technology, and that moved a lot of stuff on the street, whether good, bad, or indifferent. It moved a lot of things that we did on the street to a social media platform or online. So you've seen a lot of that in all areas of life, not just, with teaching, but in all areas of life. A lot of what people would do publicly or together, they go online and they do it. So there's a certain amount of that going on. Now, one of the tragic parts is, when we allowed our culture, and I mean at this time, I mean hip hop, the culture of hip hop, when we allowed our culture to be usurped and parasited, when we allowed our culture to be taken from us, basically, and used solely as a tool for commerce, we allowed the people that control it to manipulate the culture into making some things cool for our youth and some things uncool. There was a time when hip hop wasn't so much about commerce. It was becoming about commerce, but it was still mainly a product of the streets and of the community, of the neighborhood. And we dictated what was cool.
Right.
So Rakim, who was the first rap artist to receive $1 million contract, what was cool when he was the main MC on deck, what was cool was knowledge of self, or being intelligent, or sparking the brain. When Public Enemy was a platinum selling rap group, what was popular was, truth, activism, Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism, things like that. But once we allowed the culture to be taken from it, as it no longer came from the streets and no longer came from the community, then they dictated what was cool and what wasn't cool. So what became cool was not just the drug dealing and the drinking and the smoking and all of that, but also certain products that other people owned that we did not own. So everything became, these fashion brands that our people didn't necessarily own. So unless you're doing these things, talking about these particular brands, or behaving in this type of manner, whether it's drinking, smoking, illicit sex and doing all these things, that became no longer cool to the youth. So we allowed another people to take our culture and dictate to our youth what was cool. So now, because knowledge of self is not what is mainstream and the cool thing, you don't see the youth on the corner anymore, and so, it became
but
where...
That shouldn't stop. Yeah, but that shouldn't so because mainstream is not like selling it anymore, that shouldn't stop you from keep preaching the lessons. That shouldn't stop you from keep waking up.
I'm not going to say it stopped the brothers from teaching, because there are brothers who are definitely teaching, and they're teaching the babies, and they have programs and everything, to this day. Brothers all throughout the country and all the various groups, including the 5%ers. However, the reason why you don't see it on the street corner, see, what you saw back then with the youth, that was the thing of the day. You got what I'm saying? So you saw the youth out there. You didn't so much see the older brothers out there on the street corners. We know they was getting it from the older brothers, but you saw the young. They were giving it to each other. It was the 16-year-olds giving it to the 14-year-olds. The 14-year-olds giving it to the 12-year-olds. So you saw the youth on the streets. So once we allow somebody to dictate to us what's popular and what's not, we lost that. It's still being done. It's still being taught. But what we're going to have to do, and the only way we can do this, and this is why nationality is important, this is why community, this is why nation building is important, because what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take back control over feeding our youth. If you have to go to other people to become wealthy, if you have to go to other people for a job, if you have to go to other people for a record deal, then you're going to comply and compromise your principles. Some people, not all, but compromise your principles so you can assimilate with what those people say are popular. So once we get back in a position where we're giving out the jobs in our community, where we're giving out the education of in our community, when we're writing and financing our artists, we can now say the artists that we finance, we want you to get back to putting something that's going to stimulate the minds of our youth, something that's going to be enlightening to our community and to our family if we're going to finance you.
True indeed, exactly. And I mean, just to add on, just like you said, this is why nation building is important, and unity and togetherness is important, because there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? And so it's definitely imperative for us to go far as we can take it, but we can't go far if we're going alone. If we want to go far, we must go together. We must go as one, and we must go as having one vision, just like the most honorable Marcus Garvey said. One mission, one vision, one goal. One aim, one vision, one destiny. So may Allah be pleased with Marcus Garvey. So we need these you know, even with the UNIA, right? It's, I don't know if it's active, inactive, like, you know, so it's like, especially the youth of my generation, we ask these questions because we don't see it as, we only just hear about it, man. In the 1920s, during the Garvey days, right? It used to be this and that. And now I know there's still some UNIA chapters, but again, it wasn't prominent and potent as it once was. And so although the head or the leader has transitioned, that shouldn't stop the movement from progressing. And, you know, that's my thing. I think that, and I may be wrong, but in my opinion, when Father Allah, aka Clarence 13X, when he transitioned, I think that that took effect of the whole nation of the gods and earth, and that kind of dwindled a bit and had the nation go south. And since then, in my opinion, it wasn't as it once was, just like the UNIA when Marcus Garvey transitioned. So it's unfortunate, but I know the nation of the gods and earth are still active, but I wish I had a more potent, more potent, not message, but just visibility and presence, right? Visibility and presence on the internet and in the street, because granted, not every youth is on the internet, not every youth is on social media, and not every youth have a phone, as quiet as it's kept. All right, go ahead.
One thing I could say is the Father said definitely, you know, after, you know, Allah left, they definitely grew, you know, by leaps and bounds in terms of, you know, quote unquote membership or people, you know, that came around in the name. It definitely grew, you know, substantially. But here's what we have to understand as well, too. You know, there are seasons for everything. You know, many things have their apex, their seasons, you know, but as long as we get out of, like, you know, Marcus Garvey came with what he came with. It was special. It was powerful for that day and time. But as long as we don't lose the message,
right.
The same with the Nation of Islam, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the head of the Nation of Islam, and he reached a certain prominence. You know, as long as we don't lose the message and the gains that were gained by these particular groups, whether it's the 5%, whether it's the Nation of Islam, whether it's the Moorish Science Temple of America, whether it's the Black Panther Party, any of these various groups of people that work towards moving our community forward, if we take the greatness that they left behind, and that those that are still around and bring forward, and then we come together like you spoke about, you know, that's where the power is going to be. It's not going to necessarily be in one group. One group will do what it does. But if we come together and take the best out of all of it, you know, certain things has its cycles. You know what I mean? Cycles, they, you know, they go around, they come around, they reach an apex, and then sometimes they fall. But if we take the greatness that was given from that particular entity and move forward with it, you know, then we'll get the best part.
I love that. I love that. True indeed, because my thing is knowledge is 360 degrees, right? So not just focusing on one school of thought, right? And some people, they, you know, they just take that knowledge and that's it for them. That's all they know. It's unfortunate because there's more to know than what you know. Right. And so if you have that open mind and if you have that open heart to learn other things, because again, knowledge is 360 degrees. So if you have that knowledge, it just isn't 120, right? It just isn't. Even if you multiply 120 by 2, you still, it still wouldn't give you 360 degrees. So you need to know that knowledge is worth 360 degrees of anything. And so that being said, we must have the open-mindedness to learn as much as we can learn. Just like Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has said, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. Always seek knowledge. Always learn something. And also, Islam teaches us to teach what you know. You may not know everything, but teach what you know. Teach what you've just learned. Teach it to someone who doesn't know. Because as you teach, you also learn. as well, because as a teacher myself, when I teach, I'm teaching myself in retrospect, right? So we must become in a habit of just read everything, right? This is why I sell books. Read everything you get your hands on, fiction and nonfiction. Malcolm X, again, man, I'll be pleased with him. He said, read everything that cures your curiosity. And that's the next thing. We are not curious enough to learn. We are not even curious enough to read, much less learn. So hence, we lack knowledge. We lack a lot of knowledge. And in lacking a lot of knowledge, we bring in room for miseducation. And this is why we are in the position that we're in today, because we lack the knowledge. We're receiving a whole bunch of miseducation, and we don't have the open-mindedness to learn. Because, and also, a person who thinks that they know everything actually knows nothing at all, right? So again, that just goes to tell you that knowledge is so vast and so abstract. And I love when you gave the scientifical perspective on the Aboriginal woman being the earth, because we need to know different facets of science, not just knowledge of self, not just history, right? But science within itself, astrology. Many of us don't even know what astrology is. Numerology. I study numbers all the time. Numerology is one of our lost sciences, huh? Also, astronomy as well. Astrology, astronomy, and physics, quantum physics, and man, just a whole bunch of other sciences that we have lost, that we don't even know about. Speak on that, beloved, real quick, because we are winding down. Speak on the importance of learning science and just learning as much as we can learn.
Well, absolutely, man. It's all about, education. And the root word to education is educe, which means to bring out. So like I told you about the genetics, we have the infinite genetics, right? Our genotype, our genes contain every element in this universe that has ever existed. So when you have that understanding, you realize that the answers are within. So when you study everything, you're actually studying self. So it's important to study self, knowledge of self, and to study everything, because that is self. So as far as the science, we're going to have to absolutely, just as a community, as a group, get back to the sciences hardcore, because that's what's controlling and ruling the world.
Indeed.
You got what I'm saying? It's the
science and technology. Science and technology. Yes, sir.
STEM all around the board. So we're going to have to keep moving our people back in that direction. We the original scientists, so we're not new to this. We understood the importance of science because we studied everything. We brought civilization to everyone. So many of these things that you're seeing, whether it's NASA, whether you take it back to some of the scientists like Albert Einstein, they're studying our scientists, our great scientists from Kemet and Timbuktu and many of the various scientists that we produce. So absolutely, man, we must study the science of everything in life.
Right. Also, I forgot the science chemistry, right? Chemistry, chem, meaning coming from Kemet, which is the original name of Egypt. Right, so all of that, and I think you alluded to that back in a Black biology class, right, some years ago. So again, man, just making sure, as you said, studying these sciences actually means that we're studying self if we go deep enough. Also, mathematics, right? We established and we created numbers. We created mathematics, and so I think if more of the youth knew that, they would love mathematics more, or they would even be inquisitive and curious to know more about mathematics, because it was us and our ancestors who created numbers and mathematics.
Absolutely.
Indeed. So what is the first book that you've read that brought you into consciousness, beloved?
Oh, man, so many books, but I'm gonna say really the first book that even before
Message to the
Message
black
to the
man.
Black Man.
I knew
Even
you were right.
which is a
Powerful.
classic book. Even before that book, this book actually drew me to that book. But From Niggas to Gods
Oh
by
my
a brother
goodness.
named
Word,
Kill. From Niggas to
word.
Gods, book
Wow.
1 and 2.
Yeah, I
Oh,
sell those books. I sell those books on my website.
oh, classic,
Indeed.
classic books.
Indeed.
Particularly part 2 goes deep. You know what I mean? But definitely both books, part 1 and 2. And I remember in the 90s seeing those books before I ever had a chance to read them. I knew it was straight fire. Because
Yeah.
again, I was familiar, with the 5% growing up, in the neighborhood, the community, and then, through hip hop. So when I saw those books, I knew those books were going to be straight fire. So the moment I got my hands on them, yeah, man,
So
changed everything.
real quick, give us 2 takeaways from these books that you've read. Give us about 2
Absolutely.
takeaways.
Absolutely. And the books pretty much, explain itself. But from from Niggas to Gods, one I'll say, and this is for both book 1 and 2. One is, to go from being a nigga to God, right? A nigga is a design. Now, we use that word in many different ways, and we understand some of the roots of the word, meaning royalty, like in Ethiopia, Negas or Negas or Negus, right? But
Negus.
yes, but just the term nigger that we became accustomed to in this country that had become a derogatory term, we realized that it is a construct. That is a design. A nigger was made, right? So you took somebody and you stripped them of the knowledge of themselves. You fed them the wrong foods. You taught them for centuries that they were nothing. Then you put them around a group of their own people, stripped of knowledge, given a false self-esteem of being nothing, and then you put them in a circle and had them fight and kill one another. That's a nigger. That's created. So to have the understanding of the design that goes into making a nigger and then reverse that polarity in the design of bringing yourself back to the supreme level of God that you truly are by nature, that is the takeaway of that book as a whole. That's one. You asked for 2. That's one of the major ones. The design of how they made a nigga versus how you bring yourself back to the supreme state of God, going from a nigga to God. The other takeaway is being able to go into, whether it's scripture, Bible, whether it's Quran, or whether it's ancient script that they all come from, from Kemet, and understanding that these messages are speaking about us, even if it's in parables, even if it's analogies or metaphors. They're speaking about the greatness that ultimately is within us. So when you talk about the Savior or the Messiah, when you talk about the Christ, when you talk about God, what you're talking about is something that exists within us that is us. So when you're looking for the Savior is going to come from within us. Whether it's you saving yourself personally, as well as you coming together as a group to save yourselves. The Messiah is you. And when you talk about the supreme beings, that supreme intelligence that has no beginning, no ending, that gave birth to everything that you see in existence, and you understand that supreme intelligence needs it must have a physical container to be able to operate in this physical plane, and that supreme circuitry is laid within the melanin dominant individual, then you realize how important you are and how important it is to take care of yourself. All of that was definitely in those 2 books there.
Indeed. And I also want to shout out the book for the ladies, right? The
Yes.
Goddess Black Woman, Mother of Civilization, again by Akil. This book is powerful too. I actually read this book, right? So again, for the women to get back to your natural state and to learn and restore the image and the character and the responsibility of the so-called black woman here in America. This book is important. Again, the goddess black woman, mother of civilization, because again, we are the mothers and fathers of civilization. So let's return back to our throne and let's return back to our rightful place in life and of the world. All right.
Yes.
One more question, beloved, before I let you go. I don't mean to keep you too long. But this is a new segment that we've incorporated into our podcast. So who is your favorite ancestor and why?
Wow. Very powerful question. And there's been so many, so many. But
So
on
give me
this one,
two. So give me two.
okay. Okay. And you know, still difficult because there's so many, but I will give you two that meant something real time, particularly within my culture. I'm
Yes,
going to
sir.
say first, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the reason being is he was not only one of the first, even if there were some before him, but he was one of the greatest examples of self-sufficiency. One of the greatest examples of being God and doing for self. What he was able to do at the time he did it, to erect a nation, an organization, a movement that was self-sustaining with their own schools, hospitals, farmland, trucking companies. I mean, you name it, security firms. Also began international trade between the Nation of Islam and Peru. When you see what he was able to do in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s is unprecedented even to this day. So he's one of my favorites in restoring the self-esteem of
Yes.
Black people.
Facts.
Taking them from the bottom. I mean, you know, drug addicts and, you know, pimps and prostitutes, taking them from the bottom and standing them up to have self-respect, to then move into being self-sufficient. Unprecedented what he was able to do, and even to this day. And the second one I'm going to give you, I'm going to have to give you the father. I'm going to have to give you the
Indeed.
man
Okay.
who was known as Clarence 13th X, who let the world know that he was Allah, the arm, leg, arm, head God in the physical form. Him coming to the downtrodden youth in America that was told that they weren't nothing, that were being thrown into the reform schools, that were pretty much left for dead, that was left in poverty, and be able to bring the science of them being God back. Right. And I say back because our ancestors, we always had the knowledge that we were the gods, that we were the supreme beings. And not only did he bring this to a downtrodden group of young people and brought the knowledge of God to them, but he actually started a movement that became popular even later on. When you talk about the new age, you know, ancient wisdom thought of laws of attraction or being God, we going into, you know, Wayne Dyer and Napoleon Hill and some of the people, you know, like books like The Secret and books that became popular. And later on in the 21st century, all these books and all these movements that a lot of other cultures then adopted, the father was ahead of that by decades by teaching these young people that they were God and that the power was within them. And all they had to do was think it and move on it, discipline themselves to carry it out, and then come together. So those are two ancestors that I have to say that took our communities to different levels.
True.
And even like I said earlier, the people that came out of or came through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, from the Minister Farrakhan to Malcolm X to Muhammad Ali to the Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad's, and then you take it through, you know, the father, and you take it to hip hop, those from, you know, Big Daddy Kane to Rakim, and you take it, you know, to the Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, you know, and the people that were inspired by the culture, even if they weren't a part of the culture themselves, like Nas, you know.
Right, Jay-Z.
So that's what I'm saying, man. Busta Rhymes, people that was able to bring art to the table and transmit a message, man, to the youth to keep this information going. So
Yes,
through
sir.
those two people and through those two groups, many people come from that.
Man, we didn't even touch on this topic, so real quick, because this is a topic that is dear to me and is growing as far as seeking more knowledge in it. The topic of agriculture, right? So I understand that you have land and you're growing crops and so forth, right? So how important is agriculture to our culture? And knowing that there is no culture without agriculture. But so many, again, dealing with miseducation, many of us don't even know the importance of agriculture and don't even know what agriculture is to begin with. I just had an agricultural workshop, and again, not too many people showed up because, again, they don't know of it and they're not interested and curious to know. But little do they know, agriculture will save our life. One, and agriculture is one of the vital components in us receiving true freedom and true emancipation. Because again, without agriculture, we will be dependent on the system to feed us. We will be dependent on the system to eat. If we had agriculture, if we know how to grow our own foods, if we know how to grow our own crops and what seasons to grow them in, we would be much better off. So sorry for the long-winded question, but what is agriculture and why is it so important?
Yes. Great question. And like you said, there is no culture without agriculture. What makes it so important is when we understand who we are as a
Okay.
people, much of what depends on our greatness is understanding our genetics, our physiology, and who we actually are. When I say that we are the gods, when I say we are the supreme beings, I don't just say that from a cultural standpoint of this is just a cool thing to say. I say it from a scientific standpoint of understanding literally what our bodies are designed of. And when you understand what our bodies are designed of, again, from our flesh, going backwards from our flesh to our cellular life, to our atomic life, to our subatomic life, we understand that these are our essence, vibrations, frequencies of energy, of electromagnetism that not only has no beginning, no ending, always existed. So when we understand what we are, then it's then important that if we're going to get the best out of ourselves, if we're going to take a thought, which is a light impulse coming from our brain, and anytime you have light, which is electromagnetism, that electricity produces magnetism. Anytime you have electricity, magnetism is its counterpart. So if you produce a thought and the current of that thought is strong enough, it's going to produce a magnetic component to it that's then going to magnetize things to you or repel things from you. So when you understand the power that you possess to create your reality, to think things into existence, to speak things into existence, to act, move, and behave, and literally create the universe around you, then you understand that we must get the best and proper have the best and proper access to the powers of our being. And the only way we can do that is to remove or not put blockages in the way of our greatness. And one of the biggest ways that we do that is with what we consume physically. And what we consume physically, whether it's through water, whether it's through food, if we're placing blockages, our mind literally is throughout our entire body. It's within every cell of our body, our mind. Our brain is in our skull, although technically we have 4 brains, one in our skull, one in our gut, our heart, and our skin. They're all forms of a brain. But our mind is within all the trillions of cells within our body. Now, what we consume, our cells have to process. They have to remove the debris, or they have to use it for energy to continue to fuel the cell. So if what we're putting in our body is incompatible to who we are biologically, our genetic makeup, then we're going to have problems. If what we're putting in our bodies, into our cells, is toxic, then our cells, instead of expressing the supreme intelligence that's within it, if it has to constantly remove debris, remove baggage, remove garbage, then we're detonating our senses and we're blocking ourselves from receiving and giving signals. So the only way to get the best form of nutrition and food that we put in us is to do it ourselves. We first have to study self and then pattern what we produce off of ourselves, being compatible to self. Now, when we allow other people to do it, if those other people have ulterior motives and desire to keep us subjugated, then they can simply keep us weaker through our food. Now, we've seen it done. We've seen it done through the fast food. We've seen it done through the drugs and the alcohol in our community. We've seen it done through the poison. The poison.
Yep.
Absolutely. The poison. Now, even if a people did not have our worst interest at heart, but they're simply just creating an agricultural design based off of their biology, it's still going to miss the mark for us to reach our greatness, because their biology may not be compatible to ours. So if they're producing food that's best for them, it may not be the food that's best for us. Or like the agricultural practices, like using a lot of nitrogen, may not be the best for us. We may need more selenium and copper minerals within our soil, as opposed to other types of minerals or things that are used that are beneficial to other people. So it's important to, number one, have knowledge of self, to understand our biology, our physiology, understand our genotype, and then design an agriculture based on that to grow the foods that are compatible to us. Keep it as pure and as close to nature as possible, so we can get out of our own way and allow the supreme intelligence that's within us to expand outside of us.
True indeed. Man, so before we conclude in the part here, man, I just want to say thank you, beloved, because I know you don't do much interviews anymore. So thank you for coming on and building with me and my people, and adding on to various topics and giving your perspective on them as well. I trust that the people that was listening, and then the people that see this later on YouTube, will definitely gain some knowledge of self and just gain some overall knowledge about the various topics and subjects that we spoke on today. So again, thank you. And I'm very honored to have sat down and have this build with you. I appreciate that, beloved.
Most definitely. Thank you for inviting me. And, apologies for the technical difficulties we had in the beginning. But, willfully, everyone was well fed. I want to mention, a lot of people have been asking for a very, very long time. So I have something in the works. I have a few things in the work, literary. One is a book, which is a compilation of sayings that I wrote myself, called Divine Sayings of a Mastermind. Right? Divine Sayings of a Mastermind. I'm going to put it out there, the ebook out today. It's going to be an NFT uploaded to the blockchain, coming very soon, used as a fundraiser for some of the various projects that we have in the works. But I'm going to put it out there today as an ebook, and the first 25 people that purchase this book, this is called Divine Sayings of a Mastermind. It's $100, this book. This book contains everything that you need to know, from diet and nutrition to exercise to finances, to overall putting yourself in the right mind state to create your entire reality. So if you want to study and read a book to put you in a place mentally to create your entire reality, purchase this book, Divine Sayings of a Mastermind. I'm releasing it just today, and that's off of popular demand. I never really intended to write books at all. I'm a writer. I write, film scripts. I write television scripts.
And
For
you act
years,
as
I've
well.
been doing this. However, people have been asking for years. So this is the first book, which is, again, a compilation of sayings called Divine Sayings of a Mastermind. Purchase that book today. You can hit me on Born Master ENT at hotmail.com. That's Born, BORN, Master, MASTERENT, like short for entertainment. You can hit me and request the ebook. I'll send it to you, or you can go to the Instagram at Nation Business Builders on Instagram. Again, I haven't been very active on Instagram because I've been out in the streets real time putting in the work, but I will, come back and continue to share. But again, BornMasterENT at hotmail.com or at Nation Business Builders on Instagram. Request the ebook. The first 25 people, you will get the NFT when it's uploaded to the blockchain, and you will have your digital representation that will be a part of our nation state and the projects that we are building. So
Wow.
I just wanted to put that out there for the people.
Wow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So your email is bornmasternft at hotmail.com. Correct?
Born Master ENT, like entertainment.
Oh,
Born Master
ENT. Okay.
ENT. Yep. E for enormous, N for now, T for truth. Born Master ENT at hotmail.com, or you can DM me at Nation Business Builders on Instagram.
All right, bet. Indeed. Wow. That's quite a surprise. That's quite a surprise. And that's peace too. That's peace. I'm definitely looking to purchase that book and also promote. I will also promote that book as well. So if you can send me the book cover and the caption, I will be more than willing to promote that on my site so that we can get up to that 25 purchases rather quickly, right? Rather quickly. So any last words, and if you can give a motivational message to the youth that doesn't have knowledge of self.
Absolutely. Overall, last words overall is understanding that we live in some really good times. There's a lot of madness going on. There's a lot of craziness going on, but the madness and the craziness is a representation of the end. And a lot of times when there's an end and there are those who don't want to let go of what they've been holding on to for a while that's been given to them, they're going to go out with a bang. So that madness that you see is a representation of a change, a paradigm shift. So embrace it. Understand what's going on. Understand that we are in the time of the rise of the original people. Nature itself is getting in tune. Our planet is positioning. Our poles are positioning in ways that are going to contribute to the rise of the original people. So as the last words, the greatest and best thing you can do in this day and time is come together with your people and get as close back to nature as you possibly can in terms of diet, in terms of study, in terms of agriculture, and coming together, living a natural way of life, getting back in tune with nature, because our time is now. And a message to the youth is understanding that you are all you need. Not you as an individual, but you as a collective, meaning you don't have to wait for something in the sky. You don't have to wait for another group of people. You don't have to wait for something outside of self, but you and your family, you and your community, you and your people, you come together and you have all the greatness within. Your melanin itself, your genotype, your genetics, again, is the infinite genetics that contain every element that existed in this, that ever existed within this universe. So the universal blackness of supreme intelligence that's within the cells of all of our bodies is the unified field to the entire universe. Therefore, every solution to any problem that could possibly exist exists within inside of you. You just have to get out of your way. You may have to fast. You may have to cut some things out of your diet. Drink your water, exercise, meditate, come together, study, but you are the answer that you've been looking for. You are the saviors of the world. You are the messiahs. You are the Christ that would come at the end of the world. Not at the end of the planet, but at the end of a world of thought, and a world the way that it's been operating for the last several hundred, maybe even thousands of years. You are that savior, that Christ, that Messiah that's coming this day and time. So study, get back in tune with nature, and rise up into your rightful positions.
Wow, that's supreme knowledge right there. That's supreme knowledge right there. Again, thank you, beloved, for bestowing upon us your supreme knowledge, your supreme intellect. It was definitely much needed. This was a A1 discourse, as I like to call it, and definitely the knowledge that you bestowed upon us tonight is much greatly appreciated. So thank you again. And so for the people who want to purchase the book, please contact Born Master Allah at Nation Business Builders on IG. Nation Business Builders on IG. All by email. What's the email again, beloved?
It's bornmasterent@hotmail.com. That's bornmasterent@hotmail.
At hotmail.com. Indeed, indeed. All right, and again, if you want to listen to the whole interview, definitely click the link in the bio, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast platforms. We're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Audible, and where any podcast platforms you can find, we are on that platform. So I leave you as I greet you. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, shalom, hotep, Islam, Alafia. Peace.
Peace, family.